Lots of people think that the best way to retire early is by making as much money as you can, by pursuing high-paying careers like doctors and lawyers. But this is actually not true. My name is Alex Ray, and in this video, we'll talk about why your standard high-paying jobs might not be the best path to early retirement. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because we will be covering which jobs are great if you want to retire early, including some that don't even require a college education. First, I want to preface this video by saying that you should not make a career decision solely on the desire to retire early. Assuming you start from nothing, it'll probably take you at least 10 years to retire early, so you don't want to be stuck doing a job that you hate for a whole decade. We could all die tomorrow, so you want to be sure you're doing something that at least satisfies your soul somewhat. Or at the very least, you can tolerate your job and you find meaning outside of work. There's absolutely nothing wrong with not being super passionate about your job, but you definitely don't want to be miserable. I made this video because I thought it'd be interesting to see how some common careers stack up against each other if you're not planning on working a 40-year career. Maybe you're trying to decide between two different career paths and this video can give you some useful information. Or maybe you're a few years into your career already and want to make a career change. Or maybe you just have absolutely no idea what you want to do in life yet, which is totally fine. But you know you want to retire early. This video should help in your brainstorming process and give you an idea of the sort of careers that might help you reach that goal. And with that, let's get started. So when a lot of people think of high income earning careers, they think of doctors and lawyers. And this is an accurate statement. If you look up a list of the top 10 highest paying jobs, pretty much all of them fall into this category. But if you want to become a doctor, it takes 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency on average, meaning that you're not going to be making doctor level income until year 12, at which point you're probably already in your 30s. Not to mention all of the debt that you incur just to get to that point. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, the average student loan debt of somebody graduating medical school is just over $250,000. And that number just increases each year. Doctors on average take 10 plus years to pay off this debt, meaning that they're not fully focused on building their investment portfolios until they're over a decade into their career. And even if you are able to manage having a part-time job during medical school, there's very few part-time jobs out there that'll make a dent in that student loan debt. Additionally, you have to consider the opportunity cost of all those years spent in school. You don't earn a dime during undergrad or medical school, meaning that you lose out on years of investments that could potentially grow. Roughly speaking, you can double your money every 10 years with a standard investment portfolio, so you're losing out on a lot of growth. You also only get a limited amount of tax advantage space in retirement accounts each year. As of 2020, the limit for 401ks is $19,500. And the IRA limit is $6,000. If you aren't able to contribute in a given year, you lose all of that space. You unfortunately can't retroactively contribute to retirement accounts once you start making amazing doctor money in year 12. So while yes, doctors and lawyers are great careers for long-term income potential, they're not great paths to follow if you want to retire early because of the high student loan debt and the opportunity cost for all those years spent in school. To a lesser extent, this includes any career that requires a master's or an MBA. That's 2 years of extra tuition and 2 years of little to no income that you're sacrificing. That might take 5 to 10 years just to break even, depending on how much it costs and how much income you're gaining by having that degree. So can it make sense to pursue postgraduate education if your goal is early retirement? Definitely, but you have to run the numbers. Here's how you can calculate whether it might be worth it. First, figure out how much it costs to acquire the degree. This includes the tuition and the opportunity cost of not working during those years. For example, if tuition for 2 years is $50,000 and you would have to give up a job where you're currently making $60,000 a year, your total cost of acquiring that degree would be $50,000 from tuition and then $60,000 times 2 for the loss of income. Next, estimate how much your income is going to increase after you get that degree. So if the degree costs $160,000, but it only increases your income by $20,000 per year, it would take 8 years just to break even. And then finally, don't forget to factor in the potential growth of investments. It's not a fair comparison to just compare cash versus cash. Making money now is usually better than making slightly more money later if your goal is to retire early. This is because money takes time to grow, and so the sooner you can put it away, the better your investment portfolio will be. The main takeaway here is this: any career that requires long, expensive years of schooling is probably not conducive to early retirement, no matter how great the income is at the end. If this is a path that you're considering, Be sure to run the numbers first to make sure it makes sense in your time frame. So we've covered what's not a great option if you want to retire early. Well, what is? Let's start with career paths that require an undergraduate degree. The main thing that we're looking for here is high earning potential straight out of college. First, the obvious answer that I'm sure many of you are thinking of, software developer, or really anything in the software realm. This career path has one of the highest starting salaries out of any from undergrad. It's not unheard of for software developers to start straight out of college with six-figure compensation packages, especially in high cost of living cities like Silicon Valley. Compared to some of the other career paths in this category, software developers tend to have slightly better work-life balance, as well as less external pressure to live extravagant lifestyles, meaning that they have more income that they can put towards investment for retirement. Another career option for high early income potential is investment banking. You can make great money and huge bonuses straight out of college at a big bank, but be prepared for long hours and grueling work. It can also be a really competitive industry. Some of the big banks on Wall Street are harder to get into than Harvard. However, the income potential is huge. Once you have 2 or 3 years of experience under your belt, you can either stay within investment banking or transition to other financial services like hedge funds, private equity, and venture capital. All of those paths will have you making excellent six-figure income just a few years out of college. Another option to consider is management consulting. Similar to investment banking, the best management consulting firms will be really tough to break into and have you working really long hours, but the income can be fantastic straight out of undergrad. Typically, management consultants travel 4 days a week. Since they often get assigned to clients around the country or even around the world, their firm will put them up in a hotel Monday through Thursday in whatever city their client is located. You often get to keep all of the hotel and airline points that you rack up, so that's a great non-cash benefit. This career path can be a good or bad fit depending on how much you enjoy traveling and living out of a suitcase 4 days a week, but if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, the early career income potential is great, meaning that you can put away lots of money for retirement very early. Finally, rounding out this category are engineers. Engineering is a pretty broad industry, but most engineers can come straight out of college making $60,000 to $80,000 a year, especially in certain industries like petroleum, nuclear, chemical, biomedical, and computer engineering. You do have to pass a licensing exam to practice as an engineer, but most of the time you won't need any extensive postgraduate education, making this a really great choice if your goal is to retire early. These career paths all tend to have professional summer internships available through college, meaning that you can get experience while helping offset your student loans. Most of the big names in tech and finance use their summer internship program as a pipeline to full-time hiring offers. So you could theoretically start your senior year of college with a full-time offer in hand. There's a couple other honorable mentions that I do want to include. The first one to consider is being an actuary. Actuaries work with businesses to help analyze the financial consequences of risk. With a pretty broad average starting salary between $50,000 and $150,000, the income potential in your early career could be pretty great depending on the industry you're in and the exams that you've passed. A lot of your work is related to financial modeling, meaning that you should have a better understanding of your own portfolio and how that relates to your financial independence goal. There also tends to be better work-life balance than in investment banking or management consulting, so actuary is a good career path to consider if you have a similar skill set but don't want to work the long hours. Another honorable mention I want to include is nursing. Registered nurses typically only require an associate's degree, so that's 2 years of tuition expenses and opportunity costs that you're getting back. The pay can actually be pretty good, but this is dependent on your location, so be sure to look up what your state average is before pursuing this path. You also tend to have the opportunity to work overtime, which could really help propel you on the path to financial independence. If you want to avoid college entirely but still retire early, there are some great career options that don't require any formal graduate education, but still can set you up on the path to financial independence. Even if these careers don't pay as well as some of the other careers we just mentioned that require an undergraduate degree, if you choose not to go to college, you avoid student loan debt entirely, and you get to enter the workforce an extra 4 years earlier. That's 4 extra years of gaining experience, making money, and contributing to tax-advantaged retirement accounts. Now, that may be fairly insignificant if you plan to work 40 years, but if you plan to retire early, every year counts. This is also a great option if you earned a degree in an industry that's tough to find a job in, or you're a few years into your career and you're just looking for a switch without having to go back to school. The first career path I want to mention here are plumbers. Plumbers can actually make great money, especially after you pass your licensing and certification exams. A big benefit of this career path is that the majority of plumbers are older and starting to leave the workforce, making more room for young plumbers that can demand a higher salary. The world is always going to need plumbers, so it's a really stable and predictable career path if you want to retire early. Another great high-paying job option to consider are oil rig workers. Now, the highest paying jobs on an oil rig will require college degrees, but because the work is so dangerous and physically taxing, even the labor-oriented jobs will pay much higher than they would on land. However, it is grueling work, and it is not a career path known to have great career satisfaction. But if you're going purely for high income in your 20s, this industry can set you up great if you're going for early retirement, if you just keep your expenses low and invest the difference into tax-advantaged retirement accounts. The next career option I want to mention that does not require a college degree is hairdresser. I was actually pretty hesitant to include this one in the video because hairdressers typically don't make a lot of money. The trick here though is finding a niche in a high-paying market. For example, because I have curly hair, I go to a curly hair specific salon where the cuts are more expensive. My hairdresser often double books himself during appointments where there's a lot of waiting around. For example, if someone came in to get their hair colored, that takes at least like 30 to 45 minutes of just sitting there while the color soaks in. And during that time, he's cutting somebody else's hair. If you've got a good client base in an affluent area where people tend to tip pretty well, you could make upwards of 6 figures as a hairdresser if you're efficient with your time. The final career option I want to include that does not require a college degree is sales. Most sales jobs are completely commission-based, meaning that there's no upper limit on how much you can earn. Certain high-paying sales jobs like pharmaceutical sales will require a college degree, but there are dozens of others that don't. One option to consider is becoming a real estate agent. Depending on your area, this can be really lucrative. For example, areas like LA where the housing prices are insane will give you way higher commission payouts. Although keep in mind that these hot market areas tend to be pretty competitive. Another great thing about becoming a real estate agent that's specific to the path to early retirement is that you can easily facilitate real estate investing. You have inside access to a lot of potential deals in the market. And since you can represent yourself, you save a lot of money on agent fees that other investors would probably have to make. Real estate investing can be a really powerful tool on the path to early retirement, so becoming a real estate agent can definitely give you a leg up in this area. There are some other career paths that won't achieve the fastest early retirement, but are still worth considering. And this is anything with a pension, so typically government or military jobs. Oftentimes, you'll have a pension benefit where you get X amount per year after you work 20 years. On its own, it's probably not enough to retire early on, but if you pair it with your investments from tax-advantaged retirement accounts, it can be a great little nest egg. And a 20-year career is still significantly shorter than a 40-year career, so this is a great option to consider if you're looking for something that's stable and predictable. And if stable and predictable is just not your thing at all, you can always go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum and try your hand at entrepreneurship. If you're able to build a business from scratch and scale it up into something that's valuable enough to be bought out in 5, 10, or even 15 years, you can take that money and retire, assuming it's a big enough sum. This is obviously the riskiest career path though. It takes a combination of luck and hard work to make sure a small business succeeds. We've covered a lot of career paths in this video, but ultimately, the best one to choose is the one that you enjoy doing and pays enough to meet your financial goals. It doesn't even really need to be something that you're crazy passionate about. It just needs to be something that doesn't make you miserable. Even the most efficient career paths will probably still take 10 years to reach financial independence, and you don't want to be stuck doing something that you hate for a decade. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on bell notifications so that you stay up to date on the latest personal finance videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.